Hello, and welcome to everyone who has joined. I know a few of you will be coming in as we get kicked off, but today we're excited to talk to you about strategic growth initiatives and what it looks like implementing strategic growth initiatives in our product at many of our customers. So today I am excited to be joined by Mark Dupuy, Will Patterson, and Parag Patel, our three directors of product management here at Clary. Thank you for joining us. We will be highlighting how our customers are instrumenting their initiatives in a couple ways. First, we will kick off with a focus on how they are implementing account-based initiatives. And then we will turn it over to a focus on the usage-based revenue model and what that looks like. So to kick it off, I'm going to have a conversation with Will around how we are seeing our customers drive successful account-based strategies and what that looks like when they are leveraging Clary to drive those forward, and what we have seen be successful at a variety of our customers. So Will, I'd love to hear a little bit more about what types of strategies we're seeing deployed and what that looks like at some of our customers.
For sure. Thanks, Stephanie. And as Stephanie said, I'm Will Patterson. I'm one of the PM directors here at Clary. I have the pleasure of getting to build our revenue intelligence product line with the fantastic Clary team. So when it comes to account-based go-to-market strategies or strategic growth initiatives, we're talking about things like getting into new verticals or segments, moving to, I guess, more broadly, shifts in your business model, whether that's a shift from perpetual to recurring or a shift from recurring to usage-based. It might be about introducing new product lines, maybe about increasing net dollar retention within your install base. These are all really good examples of common strategic growth initiatives within our customer base that are fundamentally focused on a particular set of accounts.
So if we look at these, they're all pretty different. What do you see these have in common, and how have you seen similarities at different customers?
Yeah, great question. I think at the end of the day, success in all of these strategic growth initiatives relies on being maniacal about focusing your go-to-market resources on a specific set of high-value accounts that are instrumental to the success of that initiative. So if you're getting into a new vertical, it might be the top targets that you've identified within that vertical. If you're launching a new product, it might be the accounts that you've identified as the best potential fit for that product line that haven't purchased it yet, so on and so forth. In all of these cases, it's really going to be a particular, a subset of the total universe of accounts that you're going after that are really going to make or break your success.
That's really interesting. So we all know it's easy to come up with a strategy or a plan, but how do you really see this scaling in organizations?
So the way that I see it, scaling that maniacal focus on the most important set of accounts is about creating a positive feedback loop, as I like to say, between your strategy and your execution. So you start with your go-to-market strategy that's perfectly and painstakingly outlined. And then as the team goes out and starts doing what they do, which is sell and engage with customers and try to generate revenue against that strategy, you're measuring everything that you're doing. You're understanding where they're spending time, where they're not spending time, and using that to make continuous decisions about how you can optimize, right? If you're struggling to reach a particular segment of accounts, maybe you need to adjust your message. Maybe you're not targeting the right buyers. There's a whole host of changes that you can make on the fly when you're measuring the right things about your execution. And especially in times of rapid change, like we've seen in the last 12 months, as a lot of our customers have been pivoting their go-to-market strategies, that flywheel effect is really, really important to success.
So you make it sound easy, but we know if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. Where do you typically see this breaking down, and why is it not something that we see at every organization?
Yeah, it's not easy by any means. And typically where things break down is in this instrumentation phase. It's really, it sounds simple conceptually, but it's actually really hard to know in practice how your go-to-market strategy is being carried out, even at the level of very fundamental things like which accounts that you've identified as the most important ones to the strategy are actually being prioritized properly. Are you engaging with the right buyers in those accounts? Are you bringing the right message to those accounts? Are you doing all of the things that are defined as components of that go-to-market strategy in the first place. And because you can't measure it, you can't make those on-the-fly optimizations. And what typically ends up happening because of this instrumentation gap is you end up with this ever-widening gap between what you set out to do and what you actually end up doing. And then at the end of the day, you look back and say, oh, we didn't hit the goal. And it's because you're not able to constantly check in between strategy and execution.
So I'm a product marketer. I'm all about concepts, but would love to know, can you make this a little real for me? Can you show what is going on in organizations and explain what that looks like?
Absolutely. Let's get into some numbers. So the first thing that I'll say here is that at Clary, we have a really exciting opportunity to analyze a huge amount of execution data. We're instrumenting the go-to-market process for hundreds of the greatest revenue organizations on the planet. We're analyzing hundreds of millions of sales activities every year. So we get a really good understanding of what's typically happening at scale. And it's probably the simplest example in the context of what we're talking about here. But one great illustration of this instrumentation gap is that on average, over 75% of a rep's book of accounts goes completely untouched in a given year, which, maybe some of those accounts are, bad accounts and the rep should be ignoring them in the first place, which I would argue is an account assignment problem. But in many cases, among those 77% are going to be that same set of accounts that I was talking about earlier as being really, really critical to successful execution of your account-based go-to-market strategy. So that's one example. Another example that I like to use here is it's not just about whether you're talking to the right accounts, it's about, do you have the right relationships within those accounts? So in any B2B sales motion, it's really critical to have the right relationships with the right buyers to be successful. And if you relied on your CRM system alone to tell you where you have relationships and where you don't, you'd be missing out on a really big portion of the picture. Because what we see in the data across all of our customers is that around 70% of the people that reps meet with in their accounts, in their sales cycles, never get added as contacts in your CRM system. So you end up with a very limited slice of visibility into how execution is playing out from a person and relationship standpoint.
So those are some big numbers that, to me looks like a lot of cleanup. How do we even see organizations making this possible?
Yeah, so at Clary, we view the category of revenue intelligence as the solution that gets this whole flywheel turning again. We start by solving the instrumentation problem, and by automating manual data entry and automatically capturing real-time sales engagement data across the buying process, we're able to bring new insights about deals, new insights about accounts, new insights about relationships. And then importantly, we don't stop there. We really view the optimization here as happening in the context of the cadences that define your end-to-end revenue motion. So if you look at examples in the next slide here, like your weekly one-on-ones, your forecast calls, your account reviews, your QBRs, these are the moments where optimization really takes place at scale when you're driving consistent conversations across the organization based on the right data. So kind of to summarize that, the way our formula for success, if you will, the unique Clary formula is a combination of execution insights, so automated real-time visibility into everything that's happening across your go-to-market motion in the context of your operational cadence. And that's really what precipitates action. And action in this context is talking about the actions you need to take to make those account-based go-to-market motions successful.
That's really interesting to hear how combining these insights with these cadences can really help drive success in an organization. I'd love to have you share a little bit of what this looks like in our product with some of our customers and just highlight a few examples.
Yeah, so I'll talk about 3 simple, tangible things that our customers are doing at scale to make their account-based go-to-market motion successful. The first thing that they're doing is, in the context of conversations like the weekly one-on-one between manager and rep, they're making it a habit to have discussions about that whole universe of accounts that is critical to the success of the strategy that they're pursuing. Kind of in the same way that most sales teams are doing reviews of the pipeline you also need to be looking at the whole book of accounts that each rep is responsible for that really, really matter. And then you can start to ask questions like, where have you been focused lately? Where are you not focused at all? And are any of those gaps in your coverage potentially a problem in successfully executing our strategy? And it sounds really simple, but because most sales organizations don't have a good way to actually inspect this full book of business, the full book of accounts that reps are responsible for, the conversation tends to focus on deals in flight, and it's really easy to ignore problematic gaps in coverage that can make or break the difference between success and failure. The next thing that we think about, next kind of tangible thing that we see organizations doing is when you think about the metrics that you measure your reps against, they're adding in coverage of these high priority accounts as a key metric for rep success. So applying whatever lens you need to narrow down to the accounts that really matter, tier 1 priority, target for new product, whatever it may be, the first thing that you need to do is make sure that each rep has an equitable book of business to go after. And the insights that we can provide are also really helpful in that context. But once you've done that, you need to be able to drive accountability to every rep to drive the right level of coverage of those accounts and actually be able to measure that alongside, say, how they're doing on pipe gen or quota attainment. So making this a part of the operating rhythm is the next critical piece. And then the last thing that I would highlight here is beyond just keeping tabs on which accounts are being prioritized by the rep, it's also really critically important to do deeper dives into all of those accounts and really inspect the relationships. And inspect those relationships in this next view in the product here, not just at the account level, but at the specific person level. And again, in a case where, if the CIO is a critical buyer of the new product line you're selling, you want to make sure systematically that the CIO is involved at the right time in all of your sales cycles. And, back to the statistic earlier, you can't necessarily rely on the CRM system to tell you that. So a revenue intelligence platform like Clary's is really critical to answering that key question. So if I had to summarize all of these three things and, what are they really about? Those are a couple of tangible things that our customers are incorporating into their account-based go-to-market motions. Really, this is about enabling intelligent conversations at scale across the business. Conversations about really simple things like where sales resources are spending their time, where there might be critical gaps in their account coverage, and systematically how they're doing at navigating the power base. And what we find is when these conversations happen, not just in random pockets of the organization, kind of at the whim of specific individuals, but in a systematic way that's guided by the revenue operations organization, those actions start to follow. And to bring it back to the earlier metaphor, you end up with a much closer alignment between the original intention of your account-based go-to-market strategy and what actually plays out in the field. So hopefully that's been a couple useful examples. A lot of exciting things happening across our customer base today in terms of pursuing account-based go-to-market motions, and really excited for Mark and Parag to talk a little bit more about one of those specific shifts, which is changes to business models.
Thank you so much for taking the time to share with us what you're seeing in our customers. You see it more than anyone else in terms of how they are really implementing these account-based strategies and leveraging our product for that. Now we're going to focus on a specific new revenue model that we're seeing pop up more and more, and this is the usage-based revenue model. And I have both Mark and Parag joining me to share a little bit more about this revenue model, what they've been seeing with our customers, and what it looks like specifically in our product as well. So first of all, just wanted to start out by asking, Mark, how have we seen times change? How have we seen revenue models change with the industry over time with our customers?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we've seen is, originally a while ago, or maybe still in some businesses and revenue teams, there's a one-time sale. And that's really been the focus. So how much are you bringing in as a total contract value over a certain period of time? And that's how we were rewarding sales teams. And in large part, led by Salesforce and the move to the cloud, there's been that shift over the last 10 to 20 years towards recurring, whether that be annual recurring revenue or monthly recurring revenue. And that's a huge benefit, obviously, for businesses for a number of reasons that I'm sure a lot of you in this room here today already intuitively understand. But what we're seeing now in our customer base and just revenue teams as a whole is a shift now from recurring to usage-based revenue. And what that means is that revenue is recognized as your product or services are just naturally being used. And the reason we're seeing that shift from recurring to usage-based is because if you can actually instrument that well and you can actually implement it really, really well from the product all the way to your revenue tech stack, it's a true win-win for the vendor and the customer, because your customer doesn't have to commit to a whole lot to start. So they're more willing to jump in, and they know that they're only paying for the exact value that they are getting. And on the flip side, the vendor can get their foot in the door, and they will naturally feel revenue growth from their account base if they're providing high value product that's sticky and it's seeing usage or service in that case. So really positive kind of win-win for the revenue team and the customer if you're able to make that transition from recurring to usage-based. And we're seeing this more and more. And with that, I'll let Parag here and Stephanie speak to what this looks like a little bit more in clarity.
So it sounds complex. This is an ongoing sales process. What does this even look like when we are deploying it with customers?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Stephanie. So the usage-based revenue models effectively revolves around the pre-sales motion, going through this, sales cycle versus the post-sales motion, and how do your account managers or customer success managers engage with that account? So some organizations actually don't even have a seller in the pre-sale cycle. But think about going to a website and swiping your credit card. That is effectively revenue gets generated for the company and retires quota. So when there actually is a seller involved, they work with the account and effectively create an agreement to have a minimum spend based on whatever product or service that they're going to use over the course of time. So models like this are starting to become more widely adopted, and Mark alluded to this because with the benefit of both the consumer, who doesn't have to go through a normal formal process to procure the service or product, and the vendor itself, because they don't have to staff up as many sellers and go through the entire motion of enabling them and supporting their portfolio. So on the other side of the post-sales motion, effectively account managers and the customer success managers are basically doing one of two things. And that's going to help them drive more value to the customers and generate more revenue for the company. So the first thing is basically fostering relationships and stimulating consumption or spend by showcasing more use cases that they could gain value out of, or encouraging more users to adopt the product. Or the second thing is basically helping the account realize the maximum value of that minimum spend such that they can reach it fairly quickly and then eventually exceed it.
So that's really interesting how it's this continuous sales motion. And actually what it sounds like is sometimes even the post-sales motion can be more important for revenue than the pre-sales motion here after the customer has signed. Would love to know, how are we implementing this in Clari, and what's unique about Clari specifically for a usage-based revenue model?
Sure. Yeah. So we've had several Clari customers deploy this usage-based revenue motion by combining two of our products. First is forecasting, and the second is accounting engagement, which Will was referencing a few minutes earlier. This then in turn drive the net dollar retention or gross dollar retention strategic initiatives for companies in order to essentially grow the account base and generate more revenue and value across the board. So for usage-based forecasting use cases, it really revolves around revenue teams to drive accountability by aligning the usage target across the board, and that typically revolves around accounts. And so in this visual you see here, Jason White is effectively the VP of account management for the North Americas, and his team is essentially out on charter to generate as much credits used across the board, right? So there's a difference between credits purchased, which in this case is 46 million, and the revenue recognized, in this case, the credits used. And so it's a game to basically try to stimulate the consumption to grow these accounts and grow the potential to effectively meet the goal of $46 million. And if you focus your eyes on the right-hand side, the Chromos account actually has consumed or used $1.3 million worth of credits, and the Rainbow Services account has consumed or used $1.2 million worth of credits. So effectively, the name of the game is to foster these relationships, grow these accounts, and essentially track towards the credits purchased based on the credits used. On the other side, we do have the traditional roll up your forecast from the ground up, which is the commit and upside. So, and sorry, so yeah, if you go to the next visual, if you want to get down to the more tactical level, right? Forecasting is more about the aggregate. You're really thinking about the entire business, but going down to the more tactical level from an account engagement perspective, Jason White's team happens to have, sorry, Stephanie, yeah, there you go. Jason White's team happens to have many accounts that they're tracking across their book of business. And you need to glean these insights to make sure that you're focusing your time on the right places. So as an example, Apple has 66% of their active seats used, and they've used 76,000 credits consumed. Conversely, on the other side, you have the JP Morgan Chase account that's used 36%. And so you have this question of where should I be focusing my time, and how can I be helping coach each of my account team members to effectively go towards a goal, which is generate as much usage as possible. So with the power of not only this data of effectively your usage data, but also the engagement data as surfaced up by account engagement, you're able to see the healthy or the high potential accounts that you should potentially double down on. And then you could see the interactions of the emails, meetings, files, as well as the relationships that you've built. Are you connected with the right person? Are you within the right level? Are you multi-threaded, single-threaded? So with all that, again, the recap here is basically forecasting and account engagement really helps you essentially measure business at the higher level to track towards credits used and across the board, as well as down at the more account tactical level to make sure you're focusing your time and efforts in the right places.
So turning it back to Mark, I'd love to know kind of what challenges have you seen when we see customers trying to implement this new usage-based revenue model?
We see, generally speaking, we see two kind of big obstacles. If you're starting to think about this, or you're already kind of in the process of rolling this out for your revenue team and your revenue organization, you've probably already run into this in some form. But the first kind of big challenge that we see is that, well, CRM just wasn't designed to support usage-based data, right? So very simply put, kind of issue number one that we run into is the data doesn't exist in Salesforce or in CRM, in which case what our customers do is they basically just want to flat out bypass CRM and pull that directly into their forecasting solution or account inspection solution, right? So that's kind of number one. Number two is, okay, well, maybe you still want to try to get this data in CRM, but you're fitting a bit of a square peg in a round hole. That's all right, but you are making some assumptions about the data because you're losing a level of granularity, if you will, as you convert that data from your database where your product is logging the information to CRM. And so we've engaged with a number of accounts who have kind of chosen both routes. And if you're on this call and if you're interested in learning a little bit more about what we see, so one of the big benefits that we have here at Clary, especially on the product team and the product marketing team, is that we get to speak to all sorts of great revenue teams. And we kind of pick the best off, and then also are happy to advise you or tell you kind of what we see out there. And so if you do have questions about how to get this data in CRM, if that's what you want to do, we're happy to kind of guide you to figure out how best to also make sure that can work with your forecasting solution, your account engagement solution. If the data doesn't exist in CRM, not a problem. We're also happy to engage with you and see what we can do to pull that data directly into Clary or and your forecasting solution. So with that said, these are challenges, but we're extremely excited about them because we think that our platform is a completely unique position to solve this. We've built the platform from the ground up with this in mind. We're a completely modern revenue operations platform built on brand new technology. So we kind of have the luxury of having seen this come and plan for it in our platform. So we are very excited about these challenges. We're very excited about this movement. Again, we think that when it's well implemented, it's a huge win for the vendor and the customer. So can't wait to see where revenue teams head over the next few years and where they take clarity with forecasting and account engagement.
Well, thank you for taking the time to share a little bit more about what we're seeing with usage-based. I'm personally really excited because I think we are taking the lead in terms of working with our customers on deploying these models. So I think we have a couple minutes left, and I want to use that time to see if we have any questions in the chat. So I'm going to stop sharing here and hop back over to the chat to see if we have any questions that we can answer in our last few minutes. See. Feel free to send any questions you have over. And if there aren't any questions, we will wrap up a couple minutes early. Thank you, everyone who joined us. Please make sure to go back to the main stage for the next session. And we really appreciate that you took the time to hang out with us for 30 minutes here to learn a little bit about how our customers are implementing some account-based and usage-based strategic initiatives in their org.
Thank you.